President Biden is making a new push for his infrastructure plan. He says he's willing to compromise with Republicans who say the plan costs too much.
I'm willing to hear ideas from both sides. I'm meeting with my Republican friends up in the Congress to see, number one, how much they're willing to go for, what they think are the priorities, and what compromises mean men. I'm ready to compromise. What I'm not ready to do, I'm not ready to do nothing.
Biden's infrastructure plan goes beyond building roads and bridges. It includes funding for mass transit, high-speed internet, and improvements to the electrical grid. Wes Rappaport spoke with Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to get an in-depth look at the president's plan and what it could mean for Texas.
Can you walk me through, from the transportation perspective, why this jobs plan is so important for states like Texas?
Yeah, so the American Jobs Plan is a vision to create millions of jobs and set up our economy to win the future. And a big part of that is through investments in things like transportation infrastructure. I think most Americans already see the need for us to improve our roads and bridges. In Texas, for example, there are hundreds of bridges and nearly 20,000 miles of road and highway that are rated in poor condition. It's unacceptable in the United States of America, and it demonstrates the consequences of failing to invest over the years. Now we can do something about that. And when we do, we're going to create millions of good-paying jobs, most of which are available whether you have a college degree or not. We think this is how we set up America to succeed for the long run. It's roads and bridges, it's ports and airports, things like that, but also an expanded definition of infrastructure, because things like internet access are as important as access to the interstate highway system in today's times to be able to win in the economy. And of course, things like power in the grid, as all of America saw because of what happened to Texas in the winter. We need to recognize that our power infrastructure is critical infrastructure and needs to have real, serious, major federal investment.
But just more broadly on, I guess, the physical systems in Texas, in light of what happened in the winter storm that we faced here, can you walk me through what steps are being taken to help ensure that Texans are protected moving forward?
Yeah, so several things. First of all, we have grant programs, one called RAISE, that's Rebuilding American Infrastructure for Sustainability and Equity. They love acronyms here in Washington. Another is INFRA, which is a set of infrastructure grants, which are available to local communities with a view toward things like enhancing sustainability, as well as considerations of equity and just modernizing our infrastructure. Those have been ongoing. We've got applications right now that we're sorting through. We're also just doing a lot of listening with Texan leaders, spoken to a number of mayors, and as I mentioned earlier, congressional representatives on how to make sure the bill we're shaping right now, as we're looking at enhancing our airports and ports and our roads and bridges and everything else in our trains and transit, that is done with a view toward the unique issues and challenges that Texas faces. There are remarkable things going on there, from the proposal for high-speed rail between Dallas and Houston to projects that individual communities are undertaking. In Austin, there was a community effort that the city took a vote to raise the revenue needed to implement bigger transportation improvements. We view our role as reinforcing the best things that happen, as well as checking to make sure nothing goes wrong. And we've been in touch with Texas Department of Transportation about concerns with I-35, for example, and making sure that unfolds in a way that's not just lawful, but beneficial for everybody.
Have you had any specific conversations with leadership in Texas at the local level or at the state level about expansion of some of those key thoroughfares like I-35, like I-27, to help not only just improve trade and transportation, but also the communities that are around those thoroughfares?
Yes, I've had great conversations with mayors from around the state of Texas and, of course, congressional representatives here in Washington who I speak with often as we're shaping the next steps for the jobs plan. And what I'm hearing is a real sense of urgency, especially when you have big, wide open spaces like Texas does, as well as big, densely populated cities that are experiencing a lot of growth. Growth is a good thing, but it creates a lot of problems and challenges if you're in the business of maintaining infrastructures. There's increased demand. In some some cases, that means we need to upgrade and enhance our highways. In other cases, if you just make the highway wider, you're just going to get more cars. So we've got to be smart about giving people alternatives so that cars can travel efficiently and safely, but also so that you have great transit resources and options that you might not need the car for certain kinds of trips. All of those things have to fit together. And what we want are solutions that are going to work for Texans in their day-to-day lives, getting to school, getting to work, getting to around the community, wherever you need to be. And that requires real resources. But let me be clear, we can afford this. In fact, I would argue we can't afford not to do this. And the plan that the president is putting forward is fully paid for.
Mr. Secretary, what is holding this plan back right now? Are there any roadblocks, whether in Texas or otherwise, that are preventing this from getting to its fullest potential that you see it?
Well, in order for the plan to be a success, we need, of course, for it to pass through Congress, get to the president's desk, and then it'll fall to my department and the other departments to go out there and execute. We're ready to do that once we get the resources, but first we need Congress to act. That's why I'm speaking to members of Congress literally every day. We're talking to members from both parties and both chambers. Not that long ago was at another meeting in the Oval Office that the president convened with Republicans and Democrats from the Senate and the House, working on how to get this done and open to conversations about how to refine it, how to improve it, how to get as much support as possible. But let's remember, the American people want this to happen. What we don't have to do is somehow convince America that we need big infrastructure investments. This is already something that has enormous support among Americans. We just got to get Washington to catch up to that. And sometimes that does take a pretty heavy lift for folks like me, really walking through the details with members of Congress. We're not going to develop all of the answers in Washington. That's not the role of the federal government. The solutions don't all have to come from Washington, but more of the funding should. There are levels of complexity and just size on some of the projects that need to be done around the country that call for nationwide investment. That's how we built the interstate highway system. That's how we got a transcontinental railroad in this country. And that's what it's going to take to make the upgrades that are needed. Remember, other countries are not hesitating to make these kinds of investments. You look at our allies, look at our competitors, look at a place like China and the huge sums of money that they're investing because they know this will help them compete and win. The president wants America to compete and win the future.
Buttigieg and President Biden face big challenges convincing skeptical Republicans to back the infrastructure spending. Earlier this spring, Texas Senator John Cornyn laid out some of his concerns.
But if you're talking about roads and bridges, those are things that enjoy broad bipartisan support. But the problem is when you start asking how do you intend to pay for it, it gets pretty quiet. And one of the ways the Biden administration wants to pay for their wish list is by raising taxes. And I don't think there's any support on my side of the aisle for raising taxes for this purpose.
President Biden has said he would like to raise the corporate tax rate to between 25 and 28% to pay for the plan. The current rate is 21%. A bill to prepare power plants for sub-freezing weather clears the Texas House, but some lawmakers have big concerns.
I had concerns about because this particular bill, it's basically a revolving line of credit with no end in sight.
Why Texas voters may need to weigh in on paying for the plan. Plus, new progress on legislation to help families of men and women missing in Texas.